welcome back to Activity Quest, the podcast packed with stuff to do. In this week's episode, Adam's looking around the Science Museum, but it's not the one in London. My name's Bex, and every week we go up and down the country on the quest for something epic. This week, we're at the Science Innovation Park in Swindon. It looks a little like a top-secret military base, and that's because, well, it used to be one. Previously an airfield and now home to the Science Museum Group, Science Innovation Park houses tens of thousands of artefacts of important historical value. So Adam went to find out more.
My name is Mark Day, and I'm a collections access facilitator here at the Science and Innovation Park.
It looks like a top secret military base. It used to be a military base of some description.
Many, many years ago, up until 1979. Well, the base came about in 1939 when the Ministry of Defence actually bought the land. And then from then on, during the course of the Second World War, many of the buildings started to go up on site here. It was a maintenance airfield for the RAF, so the aircraft that was damaged during the course of the war were being moved here and then repaired. And that continued throughout the war. There's approximately 16 hangars on site, which used to have lots of aircraft inside with the RAF. And the RAF had it until 1972, when it was then handed over to the Royal Navy. Now, you may think it's a bit strange having a Royal Naval air yard so far inland, but it was a fantastic place, really, for the Royal Navy to have their helicopter repair depot. So the helicopters that were flying off of the boats were being brought here for repair and servicing and maintenance.
I should say that we're kind of just south of Swindon. Maybe like, what, five miles south of Swindon, maybe?
Probably about that, yeah.
5 miles south of Swindon. You've taken me upstairs in one of your hangars. It looks very clean. It smells very clean. Where are we? This place looks absolutely massive.
This is the Hawking building, and this is the upper mezzanine level. Now, to give you some idea just how big this building is, it's approximately 30,000 square metres. So if you was to put that in terms of football pitches, it could quite easily accommodate 3 full-size football pitches. It sits at the heart of the Science Museum Group. Now, there's 5 museums within the group. And those museums need to change their display objects. Otherwise, it gets a bit boring. So for exhibitions, and so on and so forth, you need something a little bit different to keep people interested in what they're looking at. So we house over 80% of the entire collection for the Science Museum Group. And effectively, we're at the heart of the Science Museum in that respect, because when the different museums want to change their objects, they come to us and they explain what they want, they have a look at the objects, and then we can facilitate that change.
The empty shelves certainly did not last long. We've come to the other end, literally like, 10 or 20 steps, and as far as the eye can see, for about 3 or 4 football pitches, there are now shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves of stuff.
There is stuff.
Stuff that, as you said, the Science Museum and some of the other museums in the group use for their exhibitions. How is this all organised?
Well, when the previous storage facility was being in use in London, there was lots of smaller rooms, and it was a case of the curators of the different collections were using those rooms to store their objects. Then when this building was finally finished in 2021, all those objects made their way down here. And as each room was being emptied out in the previous storage facility, which was called Blythe House in West London, these objects were then being brought in. They were being checked over for hazards and condition, and then placed out on the grid, which we can see before us. And now the grid is enormous. It's currently occupied by lots of big objects. But before the big objects arrived, there was a whole sea of boxes, plastic boxes containing lots of smaller objects. And from then, they were checked, and then they were moved, and then they were brought to both the upper mezzanine level and the lower mezzanine level, and they were then put onto the shelves and scanned into the shelves. So we know exactly where all these objects are at any given point.
We're stood on a balcony overlooking, as you said, the grid. I think one of my favourite things from the Science Museum in London is that sort of initial hall as you kind of go in and you have tons of vehicles and planes and stuff like that. This is very similar in the sense that it's full of cars and buses, and I mean, that over there looks like something out of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Yeah. What's your, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a vehicle, what's your favourite item?
My favourite object isn't actually on the grid, it's actually on the shelves behind. But as we walk around, I can show you that.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's got, it's a very visual object. However, you know, when you look at it and when you see it, it's absolutely amazing, it really is good. We've now come to my favourite object.
You're pulling out some gloves.
I'm pulling out some gloves because I have to handle this object. And it's a remarkable object. And
you have a massive smile on your face as well.
Absolutely. I love this object.
I'm trying to work out which one it is. So in front of us, we've got all sorts. There's a skull. There's like somebody's head there. There's telescopes. I mean, these just look like giant tweezers. I couldn't even begin to describe some of these. Microscopes, perhaps. I think. Are you going to pick up?
I'm going to pick out this thing here, which is called a prism. Now, if you don't know, a prism is a triangular piece of glass, and it's used to demonstrate a scientific principle, which is light refraction. So if you shine a light into it, it will refract the light into a rainbow of colours, which is those colours that make up the white light. And this is what this does. However, this is different because this has got a party trick like no other. When I first started working here, I unpacked this object. It came in from Blythe House. Nobody really knows where it came from. It was passed to us from the National Maritime Museum. It was previously in another collection, but nobody knows who originally owned this. This object itself would not look out of place on Dumbledore's desk in the Harry Potter films. And it's very, very special. So after taking this object out from the box, I looked at it, and it looks like a piece of glass, triangular, with a very ornate, beautifully carved wooden base. However, when I turn this object around, and you will see that there is a carving along one edge of this object. So it's a bit of a strange carving. So part of this glass has been carved out. And when I turn it round to its fullest extent, it then gives this fantastic impression of a silver goblet embedded within the glass. Now that is cool.
That's beautiful, yeah. Wow.
And I would imagine whoever originally owned this, they would have been perhaps a Victorian gentleman or a Victorian lady. They would have perhaps had this in their cabinet of curiosity. And after perhaps a nice lavish evening meal that they'd put on for their friends, they would say, come and have a look what I've got. And then they would demonstrate this. And the reaction would perhaps still be the same as what people look at now. Welcome to our robots. The robots here, they represent broadly three types of robots. So we've got entertaining robots, and by way of entertainment, we've got a robot here which was produced by Toyota, which are better known for producing cars and other road vehicles. This robot is actually called Harry, And what you're looking at, he's actually holding a trumpet to his mouth, and that is a real trumpet. And he really does play the trumpet. And he walks as he plays the trumpet as well. And it's, when you think about it, it's actually quite difficult, because I don't play a wind instrument, but to play a trumpet, you've got to change the shape of your mouth to get the tune to come out properly. So the people at Toyota managed to find a way to do this. And he plays several tunes. When You Wish Upon a Star, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, amongst many. So that's an entertaining robot. We've now got one of these robots, which doesn't do quite so much. It's perhaps got a large display on its chest. They're sort of meet and greet robots. So that they will actually help people in a new environment, show them around. So it could be a hotel complex, it could be a shopping mall, those sort of areas where people may find themselves a little bit lost and might need a little bit of extra information. And then the last type of robot that we've got
Looks terrifying.
is that is terrifying. That is a robot that's actually in very early production stages. So somebody wanted to replicate human movement. And through that human movement, if you can replicate it well enough, you can then produce a robot which can do a lot of things that humans can do, which many people find boring. So repetitive things. But this is an early example of somebody trying to replicate human movement within an object, within a robot itself. Okay, meet my little friend here. He's a common garden rubber duck, which you'd find in your bathroom. But he's very quite special in a lot of respects. You'll be surprised to know that this little chap here has actually been heavily involved in a space mission.
Okay.
And what it was, in 2014, there was a mission called the Rosetta mission, which was set up by, it was a joint collaboration between the European Space Agency, the UK Space Agency, and the Open University. And the mission was to put a probe onto a comet. Now, if you can imagine, a comet is traveling at tens of thousands of miles an hour, millions and millions of miles away. And the idea was to launch a rocket with a probe and get this to land on a comet. That's insane. That is absolutely nuts. So part of the process to work that plan, a lot of photographs were actually taken of the comet. And the scientists were trying to work out where the best place to land the probe would be. One of the scientists said, "He actually looks like a rubber duck." So another scientist went out and bought a rubber duck. And this is the rubber duck. And if you can see, there's pen marks on the rubber duck, and they represent potential landing sites for the probe. Now, the probe was called Philae, and because of that, the rubber duck is called Philly. So it's a very important duck.
Great. I'm speechless. Like, what a ridiculous story for a bunch of scientists to be sitting in a building and go, looks like a rubber duck, and then actually use a rubber duck to try and land
It worked.
a probe on a comet. Did it work? Yeah, wow.
Thanks, Adam. You can find out more by searching for Science Museum Store Tours. That's all we've got time for this week. I'm Bex, and this has been a podcast from the UK's children's radio station, Fun Kids. Listen to me on your DAB digital radio, online, on the free Fun Kids mobile app, and on your smart speaker. Just say, play Fun Kids every weekday from 4 p.m. See you soon.